Welcome to the Grand Theft World podcast, hosted and sponsored by GrandTheftWorld.com. This is episode 81. It's May 22nd, 2022. And we got a lot of clips to go over tonight. We're going to start out with a really short clip from Representative Thomas Massie. He took to the floor, took a few minutes. They had a little extra time, so he squeezed in an important message about Ross Ulbricht, who's been serving a double life sentence, something like that, with $240 million fine for creating a non-violent internet site back when he was like 24 years old. The kid was an Eagle Scout. So we'll be checking into what Thomas Massie had to say on behalf of Ross Ulbricht's case.
And I'd just like to use my remaining time to talk about one case of Ross Ulbricht. He was a young, peaceful, first-time offender serving a double life prison plus 40 years. The guy has been condemned to rot in prison for setting up a website called Silk Road. And there were people selling drugs on there, and he probably knew that was happening. But the people who were selling drugs on there who got convicted are already out of prison. And the guy who set up the website when he was 26 years old is now 10 years later. This fall, it will be the 10th anniversary of his time in prison. He was an Eagle Scout. He doesn't claim that he was innocent. He knows now that it was a crime. He's asking for clemency. He's asking for his sentence to be commuted. And, he's got a college degree. He could be a productive member of society. And so I would like, hopefully, the executive branch to look at this case. But, Madam Chairwoman, I would like to submit for the record a summary of Ross Ulbricht's case from freeross.org and remind people that Ross was never prosecuted for causing harm or bodily injury, and no victim was named at his trial. I ask unanimous consent to submit these 2 pages from that site.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Leigh, independent media. Like I said, she's going to be a special guest tonight. We're going to learn about her journalistic career, how she came to start speaking more truth to power than maybe traditional journalists have remained in their roles and seemed very subjugated to saying whatever they're told to say. She's an independent thinker. Let's talk about your education and like maybe naive entry into journalism at one point. Like, what are the origins for you? Where did you start thinking that, journalism was something you might have wanted to do? Let's start there.
Well, I was homeschooled all the way pretty much up until high school. And in high school, I did the school newspaper, writing it. I remember trying to write exposés on how the male classmen were being persecuted unfairly by the authoritarian principal. And I don't know. I had fun with it in high school. My parents used to call me their little reporter. And I just didn't really think that it was feasible, though. You have so many advisors in life telling you like, oh, well, only, 2% of people actually make it on television. So maybe you should look at this or that. So I kind of bought into that for a while and was like, okay, well, maybe I'll be a teacher or a lawyer. And, finally, when I got to college, I was like, you know what, I'll just try, because worst case scenario, I have a fallback plan,
Well, it makes a lot of sense now that I got your answer to the question, because, I always assume most people like myself are not homeschooled, but public schooled. And then your answer, as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh, it makes total sense.
Yeah,
and when I asked Del Bigtree the same thing. I was like, hey, once upon a time, what gave you the idea that you could be a producer on TV? Because it's not something guidance counselors are encouraging people to do. And he goes, oh, I was homeschooled. And I was like, oh, yeah, ding, ding, ding. And then we're going to get into this week's episode is titled Monkeypox Mania. And I'm going to say up front, I don't think you should be scared of the monkeypox. I think it's a little diversion from things going on. If you look up the picture of monkeypox and you maybe look at the photo for shingles, you'll notice they use identical photos for these things. There might actually be some fallout from all these injections over the past year. You might be seeing a side effect kind of masquerading as monkeypox. The original episode title for this week was the WHO, the WA, and the WEF. The World Health Organization, the World Health Assembly, which is going on right now to do this international treaty, and the World Economic Forum is also having their Davos conference right now.
Distinguished heads of governments, distinguished heads of states, of course, dear partners and friends of the World Economic Forum. a very cordial welcome to the annual meeting 2022. The theme of our coming together is history at a turning point. Government policies, corporate strategies. We will focus the program mainly on 4 different areas. First, the war in Ukraine, the aggression on Ukraine. At the tail end of the most serious health catastrophe of the last 100 years, COVID-19, and we have to reinforce our resilience against a new virus possibly, or other risks which we have on the global agenda. We also have to address urgently the issue of climate change and all the other issues related to the preservation of nature. And finally, we look at the future of the global economy with great concerns. Too high inflation, too low growth, too many deaths. But what is particularly worrisome are the consequences, such as falling back of hundreds of millions of people again into poverty and possibly tens of millions of people dying of hunger. We have to be really concerned about those issues, and that's what we want to do here during this meeting. So how can Davos contribute to improving the state of the world? Let's also be clear. The future is not just happening. The future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room. We have the means to improve the state of the world. But 2 conditions are necessary. The first one is that we act all as stakeholders of larger communities, that we serve not our only self-interests, but we serve the community. That's what we call stakeholder responsibility. And second, that we collaborate. And this is the reason why you find many opportunities here during the meeting to engage into very action and impact-oriented initiatives to make progress related to specific issues on the global agenda.
So this accord, this pandemic accord that the World Health Assembly is putting through is looking to usurp nation states' rights of individuals in those countries and be able to classify basically anything as a pandemic going forward.
The 75th World Health Organization Assembly has now taken place, and it's a few hours long. I did not watch the whole thing. In fact, I got so sick to my stomach watching the first 5 minutes of this thing. Let's start here. This is actually what they are streaming as the live stream goes forward, up on their big screens, right, at the World Health Organization. And it's in the middle of one of their ads, okay? So like I said, this is like 5 minutes long. But you see this person, it says at this rate at the end, at the bottom, alone in a mask. That's the running theme. And I talked about very early on during the pandemic that the idea of wearing a mask was transhuman in nature because you could no longer tell somebody's feelings. You couldn't communicate properly. Okay? And it was taking away our individuality on top of many other things. Stand 3 feet away, 6 feet away. Be behind this barrier. Cover your face. And again, at this rate, you know, we're gonna hurt the earth. We don't know what we're gonna do. We need to give more power to the World Health Organization. So let's start playing these clips.
We're bound to fall.
Well, they're bound to fall. You know what? Let's get the volume just about as high up as we can for this one. Jack it up. Here we go.
Further back. So let's stop. And step away from our stagnation. Take a different route to a better destination.
We propose a new path to goals of sustainability.
Goals of sustainability. Now, Again, this woman is outside. It's a running theme in this thing. You're a slave, wear a mask. You're a slave, wear a mask. We're all in this together, wear a mask. Sustainability. The code word is sustainability, says Dennis Bushnell. Sustainability and productivity. Whenever they tell you that, okay, sustainability means less and less of a standard living for you and your family. And then productivity means as they automate you out of society.
One that supports countries' healthcare durability.
Shifting paradigm towards promoting well-being and health and preventing the
coverage undeniably fair.
A new path that strengthens our systems and tools for pandemic preparedness and international health rules.
Oh, international health rules. And look what they show you. Oh, international health rules at the airport. In other words, total biomedical tyranny in a track, trace, database society. That's what all this means. Make no mistake how they sugarcoat it with the fact checkers. It's right out in the open. That's what that new international health rules. Really? Oh, international health. I can't go to your country unless I bend the knee to the World Health Organization.
Which is a total power grab. And if you were to look at the general grammar, who are the people that make up those organizations? And most importantly, who funds them? You might find people like Billy Bob Gates. So we're going to be getting into those stories tonight. There's a whole lot on that. Also, kicking it off tonight, we're going to have Luke Radowski, but I want to set up this clip because there's a clip that plays right in the beginning, and it's from the World Economic Forum Davos conference. You're going to hear from Albert Bourla. He's the CEO of Pfizer, and he's talking about some ingestible pill that has like a microchip in it. And I know like last year, we all heard news about that, and we were told there's no such thing on the horizon, that microchips inside your body are not something that these people are looking to do. And yet, I think their actions speak way louder than their words. Let's go to Luke Radowski of We Are Change and bestpoliticalshirts.com and kick it off for tonight's festivities.
It is basically biological chip that it is in the tablet. And once you take the tablet, and dissolves into your stomach, sends a signal that you took the tablet. So imagine the applications of that, compliance. The insurance companies to know that the medicines that patients should take, they do take them. It is fascinating what happens in this field.
Oh, microchips, huh? I wonder if the fact checkers are going to fact check this one, and that's the stuff that they're discussing publicly? Imagine what they're discussing privately. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Radowski here of WeAreChange.org, and there's a lot of very important information to get in today, as of course there's some very important meetings happening over in Switzerland right now. Lots of diabolicalness, financial craziness, and insanity that will have you going, wait, are they deliberately just trying to ruin our lives? Well, we're going to be answering that question, plus a lot more, all exclusively on this independent media organization. But the video that we played in the beginning of this broadcast is, of course, the CEO of a very big pharma agency that has a lot of lucrative government contracts and no liability for their product, that has enriched themselves to wealths that the world has never seen before, creating more billionaires than ever, just telling you about microchips that people will be taking inside of their bodies that could be wirelessly sending a signal to the authorities to make sure that citizens have complied and taken their mandatory dose of whatever his private multinational unaccountable corporation wants you to take. This on the heels of a lot of extortion efforts, manipulation efforts by governments and other authorities just months ago, pushing a product which has had some negative consequences on some people and statistically hasn't proven its value. I'll just leave it at that. But what the CEO of Pfizer is talking about is, of course, the advancement of technology that is quickening, that is moving very fast, as the World Economic Forum likes to talk about how they're coming towards a fourth industrial revolution. The stuff that they're talking about is not the stuff of conspiracy theories, it is the stuff of reality, especially when you start to learn about quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and the larger advancements that have been happening in technology that will, of course, change the way we live our life drastically. The World Economic Forum, a confab of globalists and billionaires and unaccountable bureaucrats, love to talk about this stuff since, of course, a lot of them will be taking advantage of this technological revolution to create situations that benefit them, while, of course, most likely hurting you and the average person, since, you know, that's the way that they've been doing business for a very long time. Will we get more eye-opening admissions from the head of Pfizer and other multinational unaccountable corporations and media organizations and bankers today, as the World Economic Forum just started their annual meeting today in Switzerland? Well, who knows? We're going to be keeping a close eye on this meeting, watching, of course, all the events that are going to be unfolding there publicly. But in my opinion, these are important issues, important context that we should definitely be talking about, because the larger conversations about how this new technology will be implemented is being decided by unaccountable, non-transparent parties that, of course, have a horse in this race and are set to profit a lot from this larger technological revolution, as even Yuval Noah Harari, a man that we have brought up many times on this independent media broadcast. He is known as the right-hand man to Klaus Schwab, head of the World Economic Forum, another corrupted businessman, who literally talks about how the global sickness within the last 2.5 years, quote, helped convince people to accept, to legitimize total biometric surveillance. This is his own words saying this, going on and saying, quote, we need to not just monitor people, we need to monitor what's happening under their skin. This is the same man that prophesies that humanity should be pacified with video games and drugs because of the larger technological revolution, which will create a whole bunch of, quote, useless people. Ruling elites talking about useless people. Where have I heard that before? Oh yeah, most of human atrocities throughout recorded human history. And of course, it's not just the World Economic Forum that's meeting in Switzerland with a lot of corrupted top officials in governments and corporations. It's also the World Health Organization with the United Nations that will be meeting in Geneva, Switzerland, very close to the Davos World Economic Forum meeting. A lot of the same speakers, a lot of the same attendees will, of course, be going to both of these meetings, as this World Health Organization Assembly is set to start to implement a global treaty which supposedly will be agreed upon by world leaders at this specific meeting, and specifically will codify a new set of rules and laws and powers to the World Health Organization in order to help battle future sicknesses. And this is, of course, something that Tucker Carlson has labeled as total tyranny, the total usurping of American domestic power and decision-making that's going to be handed over to the World Health Organization. That's just a short synopsis of his take on this treaty, which, of course, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, is set to agree upon, which, according to a lot of people, is going to be giving a lot of power for the World Health Organization to make policies here domestically inside of the United States. Now, whether we should give these powers or not, it's something that should at least go up to a vote, should at least be discussed, should at least be debated, especially on the heels of the World Health Organization having an absolutely atrocious record of their handling of the last 2.5 years, proving to be absolute liars, proven to absolutely cover up important information for the benefit of China. And if you could give them a report card for how they handled the last 2.5 years, I would essentially expel them out of any classroom because they have no legitimacy at all with how horribly they have handled the last 2.5 years. They have flip-flopped on major issues, caused confusion, have not helped people, and I think there's a legitimate argument to make here that the World Health Organization has actually created situations that devastated people more because of their actions and have created more pain and suffering that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for them. I think there's a legitimate reason to argue this. This organization needs to be held accountable for their lies, for their clear misdoings, for their clear corrupted cover-up of the Chinese government, for clearly not even finding out what caused this global sickness 2.5 years ago, for not even trying to help people, implementing policies that have hurt people. This organization doesn't need to be promoted, doesn't need to have more power, doesn't need to have a treaty codifying it. It needs to be put in a court of law and face all the charges that it is being accused of in a legitimate legal forum where they could be held responsible for their actions and not given more power blanketly, blindly by the President of the United States, who clearly is all not there and just a puppet of the larger multinational industrial complex that benefits greatly off of his supposed incompetence, which they're using as a cover to push their agenda on you, your family members, and to screw you over even more. What else are they going to be discussing at the World Health Organization meeting and the World Economic Forum? Also, coincidentally, an animal-based monkeypox. This, as just a few months ago, we detailed to you how there was a lot of coincidental forewarning about this very specific event by some very powerful individuals that are set to profit from it, as even there was an incident not so long ago from monkeys that were being experimented on their way to a CDC-approved quarantine facility that were literally let out loose to the general public after a truck crash. There was one woman who helped out these monkeys after the crash and allegedly had pink eye so severe that she had to go to the emergency room after, of course, these lab experimented on monkeys that were undergoing horrific gain of function research on, which absolutely, according to many scientific experts, has no scientific benefit at all except for maybe the creation of bioweapons. Why in the world are we still continuing this? Why in the world are the horrible organizations and groups that have caused so much severe pain, suffering, made so many bad moves, made so many bad decisions, lied about their decisions, covered up so much important information, still not held accountable for their clear, aggressive moves against the people of the world? Well, that's a very important question, and because they're not held accountable, they're going to be, of course, calling for more power for themselves, which to me is absolutely ridiculous.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.